Marhaba, and welcome to the Matrix Green Pill, where real people connect.
Hello, and welcome back to the Matrix Green Pill podcast. Shireen Zemo here with you guys today, and I am super excited to welcome my two guests, Danielle and Akbar Naqvi, who are both successful business people, parents, and founders of a beautiful organization called the Zahra Beau Foundation. Now, this foundation aims to pioneer the use of newborn screening, targeting the uncharted medical areas of rare metabolic diseases. What a fantastic cause, truly. Today, we will take a deep dive into their lives, the tragic story that struck them, and how they have used their loss as motivation to start an incredible foundation. Danielle, Akbar, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me today.
You're well. Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Excellent. So let's get right into it. Firstly, I would love for you guys to tell me your backgrounds, how you met, and obviously how you both ended up here in the UAE.
Okay, let me start. So I was in college in the US, and then I worked in New York for about 5 years. And then basically after 9/11, I wanted a change of scenery. And a lot of my close friends that I went to college with actually grew up in Dubai.
Okay.
And yeah, so this was around the 2004 period. So they were mentioning how Dubai was starting to take off and stuff, and I needed to change the scenery from New York. So I literally packed up my bags and moved to Dubai. And this was around 2004. And then the next couple of years, as I settled down and through my group of friends, I actually met Dani. I actually met Dani fairly quickly when I got to Dubai. And that's where our relationship started.
And my side was, I actually came to Dubai when I was 18. So I've been living here a very, very long time. My dad was working in Saudi, and he said he wanted to move to Dubai. And I'd left college, and I said, I'll go and try it out. I came for 6 weeks, and I remember I didn't even pack a hairdryer because I just thought it's a holiday. It's going to be, just fun. And I never ever left. So I actually did over 10 years living with my dad. And then I've lived with Akbar for 14 years.
Wow.
So I've been here for 25 years now.
Amazing. Well,
Long.
yeah. And the way Akbar tells the story, it seems like, it was like meant to be. As soon as he got here, he met you, and the rest is history.
It's quite funny, actually, because his group of friends that he went to college with and knew from the States, I'd actually become friends with as well. So they introduced me to him that way. So it just ended up being, it was just meant to be. And we started dating, and it's, never looked back.
Wonderful. So Akbar, I like to do my homework on each guest. And after, doing my research, I can see that you've had quite a successful career here in the Middle East. Could you tell me more about that, please?
Sure. So as I mentioned before, I did work in New York after college for 5 years, and that was basically on Wall Street. So my background is in the investment management world. So I was a trader in New York. And then when I moved to Dubai, I kind of did the same thing. So over the last 15 years, especially in Dubai, as my career has progressed, I've gone from being a trader to being a fund manager to being essentially an advisor, especially for family offices from the region. And that's what I primarily did as a profession, which was obviously managing portfolios, managing investments for institutions and specifically family offices, individuals. But recently what I did was, about 2 years ago, as you know, when you're in an industry that is fast evolving and fast growing, you obviously see opportunities in the industry as well.
Yeah, of course.
And in our industry, in the investment management world, there's been a significant change in terms of how technology is impacting just the way we work. And so about 2 years ago, I almost had an epiphany where I could see myself and where I was going and where the industry was going. And it was one of those things where I was like, if I don't make the necessary change, you might get left on the side. So over the last 2 years, I've kind of pivoted. I'm doing more stuff on my own. I've gotten more into the fintech space. So I'm actually developing a software right now that that automates the investment management process. So I've obviously taken the last 15 years of my experience, and I'm channeling it into this new methodology that we're seeing all around us. And interestingly enough, 2020 has essentially jump-started that process, where some things that we predicted would happen in the next 3 to 5 years are already happening, as you can just imagine with this phone call that we're having right now.
Yeah. So you basically had to adapt, and that's exactly what you did, and you've used everything that you've learned over the last 15 years and kind of, foot forward, and you're like, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to get left behind.
Absolutely. Like the example I give people is, at least in my industry, when you look at certain job profiles, right? And then you look at how much of it has been automated. So like, for example, back office or even trading or foreign currency, those are essentially already 100% automated, And so even when you come to my area where I'm advising people on their portfolios, or I'm advising companies on their investment strategies going forward, you can also see part of that getting automated, and there have been so many surveys out where they're seeing, like, all these different jobs, the level of automation that is happening now as compared to how much it will be automated in the next 5 to 10 years. So when you see something like that, you kind of realize, okay, where do you want to sit in that evolution? So for me, it was a simple case of, okay, if everything is getting automated, then I need to get into the space where, I'm not only creating the automation, but almost moving with the automation, or dictating where the automation will take us. Because I think what's eventually going to happen with most technologies, you'll either find the bad side of it, which we are seeing in social media, or you'll find the good side of it, which we also see in social media. And I think the same thing will happen in the finance world, in the investment management world. So my vision in that sense is that I want to use this technological advancement to do something that actually is going to be beneficial to more and more people going forward.
Amazing. And it's super fascinating, actually. I love hearing the way you talk about it. Is so passionate, so I can tell straight away that this is something that you're very, very passionate about. And Danielle, of course, you are also super incredible. I mean, looking at your portfolio, you are an owner of a PR agency as well as a travel agency, if I'm not mistaken. Wow. Could you please tell us about how you got started in all of this?
Well, thank you so much. But sadly, I've actually closed the PR agency now. I had CSPR Group, I had for about 15 years. And we really focused on females in business and female entrepreneurs. So I used to do a lot of their PR. So in Dubai, a lot of the big names that you would hear, I helped launch them, or I helped create their brand. And Dubai has a lot of PR companies. And I really wanted to have a new challenge. So 2.5 years ago, I decided I would close the PR company and follow my dream and my passion of travel. And I wanted to create a platform which nobody had really done before. And it was really going down the road of passion and family travel. And Akbar and I, wherever we've traveled to in the world, we do actually love to stay in luxury 5-star, unique, off the beaten path properties and destinations. And I noticed that whenever I would put something up on my social media, people would have thousands of questions to ask me, and why did I go there, and what was it like? And having 3 young children, I know exactly what I needed from a resort. And our children from a very young age have always traveled with us, so we've been very comfortable to travel. So I started to explain this and showcase people in my blog and help answer any questions. And then due to my, I would say, my network in the region, I decided to, I suppose, elevate the platform to booking other people's luxury travel. And my clientele are mostly Emirati and GCC nationals. And they will reach out to me when they want to go on holiday, but they don't know where they want to go. So I'll advise them based on, you know, their likes and dislikes and their preferences. I would, we've experienced a lot. I work very closely with all the luxury
You're like
hotels.
the holiday destination matchmaker.
That's the one. So that's what I really went into. And I think being in such a, it's obviously, look, travel is a big platform, but working with luxury and a niche clientele like Emiratis, I really understand what my clients need and want. So I think that's my USP, and that's what differentiates me from any other luxury travel concierge in the region.
Right. I also read that you specialize in sourcing sustainable yet luxury destinations and experiences. Why did you decide to get into that?
So I do love the idea of sustainable properties. And 10 years ago, Akbar and I were in the Maldives, and we went to a resort called Gili Lanka Fushi, which was owned by the Soneva brand. And we went, and while we were there, we met the owners, Sonu and Eva, and they were the most incredible people, and they were such visionaries, and their whole passion was to build islands that are sustainable, give back to the people in whichever area it is, and really to have everything on the island, you know, farm to table food and recyclable glass, and have their own water filtration. And what I really loved about it is that it's luxury on an intelligent luxury level. It wasn't just giving back, which a lot of people do. It was really a thought process and a forward thinking attitude. And we loved it. And it was a resort I always loved. And they're the same owners that started Six Senses. And by pure coincidence, I think maybe we manifested it somewhere along the line. But when I opened my travel business, they reached out to me and asked me to be their brand ambassador for the region. So I'm Soneva's brand ambassador, who have 2 properties in Maldives and 1 in Thailand. And I think when you go to their resorts and you see just how much they have put into saving our planet and saving the oceans, and it's rather incredible. And it just made me realize that more people, you can have all the money in the world, or, you know, you can travel as much as you want, but when it comes to intelligent luxury and giving back, and really, you know, going back to barefoot luxury, this was something that really appealed to me. So now I do have a big focus on sustainable properties around the world in extremely unique destinations in the middle of the ocean, or so whether it be in the volcanic mountains in Rwanda, or, you know, an island off Singapore, it's just something that I really want to, and I really believe a lot of more people want to travel that way as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you can join luxury travel with sustainability as well, I mean, it's a great initiative. So great job on that. And I think, want to change gears a little bit and talk about your foundation that you both founded in the name of your daughter. Could you guys share the story of Zahra with our listeners, please?
Yeah, sure. So let me start, and then Dani, you can jump in whenever you want. So when we got married in 2010, I think one of the main reasons we were attracted to each other, or where the relationship really blossomed, was we had a shared vision very early on in terms of giving back in a way where we wanted to adopt, and especially adopt from Pakistan, because for me particularly, it's a subject that's always been very close to my heart, in the sense that a lot of babies that are born in Pakistan, especially girls, are abandoned at birth. It's just a cultural thing, because obviously, as you know, in certain cultures, the families prefer male or boys to girls. And unfortunately, in a conservative society like Pakistan, that tends to be the case still. And unfortunately, a lot of baby girls are abandoned at birth. So for me, this was always a subject that I knew about early on in my life, and I knew so I had to do something about it. So I always felt like eventually when I settled down and married, I would hopefully the lady that I was going to share my life with would share this vision. And it just so happened that for Dani, that is actually something that she deeply, deeply cares about as well. And so that really resonated for us. So then after we got married, obviously the first thing we did was we went through this course that makes us officially like a couple that can adopt. It's actually a Geneva, it's a convention degree that you get from the Hague, which officially makes you.
Was it a long course?
Not really, but it's you have to go through a process. I mean, it even involves you going to see like a doctor or a shrink. You know, you get like your psychoanalysis done and everything,
right?
Just to that you're a right fit to be adoptive parents, because obviously this is not something easy, you know, and it's not for everyone. But for us, again, this was something that we really believed in. So we went through the process, and then we started the process of trying to adopt a baby girl from Pakistan. And the more we researched it and the more deeper we got into it, we obviously found out which avenues we could get. And then we obviously figured out that, yes, there were still a lot of baby girls being abandoned. So we got into that process, and then we were fortunate that fairly quickly we were able to, you know, find a baby girl from Pakistan. So, Dani, why don't you jump in this part?
Well, I think what's quite important to note here is that when I was a woman on a mission, shall we say, I mean, I've always wanted to be a mum, and once we really started the process, I was eagerly awaiting for our baby daughter to arrive. And every day we would wait for a phone call, and there'd be no phone call. And it ended up being about a 10-month process. And we finally got a call that a baby had been born in Pakistan and she'd been abandoned. And we were the next name on the list to get this child. So we jumped on a plane. We got to Pakistan, and Akbar's parents has actually gone to pick up the baby a little bit earlier than us just because of time. And I'm like, please go get my baby, you know? And we finally land, and Akbar's mum gave us our daughter in our arms, and we called her Zahra Beau. And it was the most incredible feeling. And I think it's a memory that we will never, ever forget. And it was the most incredible experience. That's something that we've waited so long for, like a pregnancy as such, but you've never got any, you know, all you're living on is your nerves and anxiety. You're waiting to be these parents, and then suddenly you've got your daughter in your arms, and it was the most incredible feeling, and she was the most beautiful little baby I'd ever seen, and it was instant love. I mean, Akbar and I were just totally in love. Zahra never left our side, and we just, you know, I was one of those, I laugh, and I was one of those co-parenting, you know, mums. I literally did not let my child leave my side. She would sleep in the bed with me. I would hold her. It was just what I've always longed for. And we ended up at a couple of weeks old managing to get all the paperwork done in Pakistan, and we bring her back to Dubai. She meets all our friends, and everything was incredible. We're new parents. I'd been to see a doctor here, even though we'd had many tests done in Pakistan, because you still, once you get a baby, and my advice for people that ever adopt a child is, as soon as you get that child, go and have all its tests done in a hospital. Go and get all the paperwork you need, because you just never know. And it's also peace of mind. So I did do it in Pakistan, and I did do it again when I came back to Dubai. Everything seemed fine. Zahra seemed very healthy. Everything was great. And then we went back to the UK. We got her christened. And then there was a few telltale signs in the UK, but again, nothing that...
As new parents, we couldn't really spot anyway.
Yeah, we couldn't pinpoint it, and doctors kept saying she's fine. Come back to Dubai in the January, and Zahra starts to be consistently violently sick, always drooling, head always to one side, extremely weak.
Can't keep her milk down.
Can't keep milk down. And one day she was so bad that I rushed to the doctor, her pediatrician.
How many months was she at this point?
So 3.5 months right now.
Oh, tiny.
And I go to the pediatrician. She was tiny. And I walked in as that screaming, crazy mum. She's being sick. And it wasn't because my child was just being sick. There was something that I knew wasn't right. And this doctor, I mean, he really shouldn't be practicing. He wasn't very supportive, and he wasn't really good at his job. And he just told me that I was overreacting and she needed a thicker formula. So when you listen to your doctor, I mean, it's all good with hindsight, but as I listened to him, I did what he said. And that night I gave my daughter a thicker formula to help her keep the milk down. And the next morning, Akbar left very early in the morning to go, sadly, to a funeral in Pakistan. And when I woke up, Zahra was blue in her cot. She was choking. Okay. So I'm literally on my own, and she was in her cot. I literally just, it's quite funny. You manage to calculate in your head how you're going to get to a hospital and how you're going to manage it, how I'm going to take my pajamas off and put clothes. And this is all within seconds. This isn't just relaxed. This is extremely fast. And I threw clothes on, put her on the bed, put her on the front car seat, and I drove into the hospital and screamed the hospital down. And they literally shouted a code blue and they wouldn't let me in the room. Akbar's obviously now on a plane, and my best friend arrives. And to cut the story a little bit quicker, that afternoon they had managed to survive her, but she was incredibly sick. And that afternoon, because I was in Emirates Hospital on the Beach Road, which isn't a pediatric hospital, they had to get her to another hospital, and no hospital in Dubai would accept her because she was extremely sick. And there was one doctor who was the most incredible person who we owe a lot to. He was based at Wellcare Clinic in Gahood, and he was traveling, and he was going to Fujairah with his family for the weekend. And he said, look, I will take her. She sounds incredibly sick. I will take her. And Zahra actually spent 2 weeks in Wellcare, and nobody knew what was up with her. And he tried everything. And he kept going back to the same question. Has she had a heel prick test? Has she had a newborn screening test?
He kept saying, what were the results of the newborn screening test? And we kept saying, like, we don't know what you're talking about, because obviously as new parents, and our pediatrician had never mentioned it either. And we were like, we don't know what you mean. And he's like, okay, there's something called a newborn screening test, which every baby has at birth. And so obviously Zahra had never had that test.
So they couldn't work out what was the matter with her. And then they said that it must be some form of metabolic disorder. So through friends in the UK, we were on the phone to Great Ormond Street. We had people helping us here. And through an Emirati friend of ours, she actually got accepted to Tawam Hospital in Al Ain, which is aligned with Johns Hopkins. And they had a metabolic specialist at that hospital. So they invited us, because it's not open for just anybody to go, but they said, you need to bring her. And in the 2 weeks of Zahra being in Wellcare, she nearly died twice. She nearly died on the way to Tawam. She managed to get there. She was there 2 days. Well, I think it was even that first day. They did extreme, high level tests on her. And the next day they told us that she had a metabolic disorder called glutaric acidemia type 2, which her version of it was 1 in 250,000 babies.
Oh, wow.
And
so it's very rare.
Her particular disease was very rare, but they'd never seen a baby that was so sick as her to have survived as long as she did. And actually, the day we got the results in the morning, and that evening she passed away at 4 months old. And obviously Akbar and I were extremely devastated, because, when you wait to become a parent, and then you become a parent, and you have your child there, you would do anything to save her life or your child's life.
Of course.
It was totally taken out of our hands, and we did everything, but sadly, she was too sick. And I think the only comfort we got from it was the doctors always said we cannot understand how this child lasted 4 months with her disease. She shouldn't have even lasted 2 weeks. So obviously with this,
She was a fighter then, very strong baby.
She was an extremely, she'd gone through so many fights just to find love, to find her parents, and she didn't want to leave us, and we didn't want her to go. And the love was so, so explosive.
But then we also realized, obviously, initially the grief and the pain is a lot. But then when that kind of started to dissipate and we tried to put perspective into the whole thing, then we realized that, for us to go through something which is it was bizarre to for a lack of a better word, like in terms of, how it all played out, and the fact that we set out to save a girl or bring love into the world, and instead we ended up with so much pain. It just didn't add up. And then that's where we did a lot of soul searching, and we kind of went, we were like, there has to be a deeper meaning to this. So the more we reflected on Zahra's journey and the way everything played out, and the consistency of what was happening towards the end in terms of this message of newborn screening, that's where something started to align in terms of, okay, maybe there was a deeper meaning to what we had to go through, and especially the way Zahra fought till the end, and that put perspective for us in terms of she was really fighting for something. And literally the moment the result came out is when she decided to go away. So even that, when we talked to each other, we were like, she fought till an answer came. So what was that answer?
And I think also as parents, I have realized that our children pick us. We don't pick our children. And our children, she picked us, and we now had to honor her name and do something in her name. And why has she chosen us? Why, out of over 1 million babies abandoned in that country every year, the one that had obviously such a great opportunity going forward with, having siblings and growing into a loving family, passed away. So we ended up channeling all this energy into research, and we actually, again, I'll cut it short because we could go on. It's a lot of years put together, but with that, we actually decided to set up our own newborn screening center in Pakistan, because with all the research we've done, we found that no babies in the country had ever had a newborn screening test.
And just to give you, from our own research, we figured out, and to put things in perspective, especially in the Western world, or even in like place like Dubai, the moment a baby is born, the nurses or the doctors do just take a little prick of the heel, a sample of blood from the heel, and then they take this sample, a drop of blood away for thousands of tests, just as a precaution, in order to make sure that obviously the baby is okay. And this test is actually mandatory in most countries in the world, and it actually started in Europe and in America in the 60s and 70s. So it's almost people don't even think about it. Like most of the time parents don't even know that this test has taken place. It's just a precaution that the doctors and the healthcare system take, because essentially what it does is that if, God forbid, there is something wrong with the baby, they'll know from essentially the first few days, and they can do something about it. So the more research we did into this, we figured out that actually in a place like Pakistan, an infrastructure obviously for this didn't exist, but for obvious reasons. Pakistan is still a third world country. It's still got lots of issues. It's still developing, and its healthcare system is still very raw. So obviously it did not have anywhere close to anything resembling a newborn screening system or a newborn screening infrastructure. So that then crystallized for us almost immediately, why Zahra came into our life. And that's how the ZB Foundation was essentially born, because we realized that we had to go on this mission, on this journey to not only promote the awareness of newborn screening in Pakistan, but actually put in place the initial stages of an infrastructure where hopefully eventually over time, then this then becomes, as we like to say on the website, this is a birthright for any baby born anywhere in the world. So why cannot this be a birthright for every baby born in Pakistan? So that's the mission of the ZB Foundation. We set it up, I think, a year to the day Zahra passed away. And so now it's been over
6 years.
Six to 7 years.
But I think what the most incredible thing about the ZB, I mean, Akbar and I are not from, a medical background. This is all just done with passion and love and, for our daughter. But when something is meant to be, it should be easy. And with Zahra, we met this company who are they provide the screening units all over the world. They're called Perkin-Elmer. And they have these machines that are in every country in the world, in all the hospitals, to test babies. When I reached out to them to tell them what we were doing, they had been trying to get into Pakistan for 20 years and they couldn't get in. So they said, we would love to work with you. We would love to support you. And they gave us a $500,000 machine free of charge.
Wow.
For us to open the first lab with. And because of the work we've done to date, they've now given us our second machine. And we would never have been able to do this without that machine, because obviously this machine tests the blood. Because if you look at the ZB Foundation, we're technically a blood sampling laboratory, even though we have the education side on it and we work with doctors and hospitals, and we have our own facilities. At the end of the day, we test baby's blood and tell them if they have a disease or not. However, this machine is the machine that you need to make this happen. So we've had this relationship with them for a long time now, and they really support us. And if it wasn't, thanks to them, we would have had to have raised such a huge capital to have even started this charity. And the charity was really started on love, not money, and it worked. And it still runs on love and passion. But I think we knew immediately that there was a need for this, because and I love telling the story. So literally the day we set up the machine and the first day we were in operation, we actually got a call from a doctor, and he basically said that he'd heard about the foundation, he'd heard about that we were doing newborn screening, and he basically said, I have a couple who've been trying to conceive and every time they conceive, they lose their baby immediately. And now they're on their fourth try and their fourth baby. And we want to know if, what's wrong. So we did a test on that baby, and what the result that came back essentially said that the mother and the father were genetically not compatible to have children. And and this was literally the first test we ever did. So they'd lost their child every time, and actually by the time we got the results back, sadly the baby had passed away. But what was so incredible, which I just interrupted you on, sorry, but what was so incredible is that the very first baby we tested had a disease. The parents couldn't have children, and it just solidified exactly what we've been working on, that there is a need for this in the country. And out of all the babies born in Pakistan, the very first baby we test actually was sick.
But it's but it's still a lot of work, and we know the mission in front of us is still very, very, it's huge, because let's put it this way, 4.5 million babies are born in Pakistan every single year. Like, we put it on our
Wow.
marketing material stuff. Yeah, that's equivalent to the New Zealand population.
It's very hard to actually, imagine that amount of babies being born.
Exactly. So the mission in front of us is, and the other thing is that culturally, again, it's the awareness of the education is still a challenge, because a lot of doctors, and they're still not used to this, and they still look at it from a very old school perspective, where they think like, why should we test a baby if there's nothing physically wrong with the baby, and why should we put this burden on the parents, and stuff like that. So a large part of our challenge is to actually convince the doctors and the nurses to to do this test. And obviously the way we do it is we obviously say to them that it's free of cost, and that kind of accentuates the process. But it's a long-term game. This is a long-term process. We realize that we cannot do this alone. We have to get the government involved at the local level, at the federal level. So now, because we've been doing this for 6 years and we have enough of a track record and a reputation in the market, we've started to engage with the government, because ultimately the government needs to put the infrastructure in place on a national level. So that's where we're heading in terms of big goals. But the good thing is that in the 6 years that we've been operating, we just recently crossed a very significant milestone, in that we just tested our 30,000 babies. So now we've tested 30,000 babies.
Amazing. Good job to you guys. Honestly, that you've done such a great job. I haven't been able to give much input through this conversation because I'm just in awe of everything that you're doing, and it's honestly heartbreaking to hear the story, of course, of both you and the other couple that you mentioned. But that just, I feel like you said, that must have been a very important moment to kind of motivate you that yes, you are doing what needs to be done. And sometimes you can't rely on other people. You have to do it yourself.
I think that's exactly right, because as I said, we're not from a medical experience. We're just a couple that, had passion and love for our child, that we were just adamant that no other parent should go through what we went through. And, I gave you a very soft-toned version of the story, but for 2 weeks, we actually watched our daughter deteriorate in such a way that we couldn't do anything. We were helpless, and she still kept fighting, and a child shouldn't go through that, and neither should parents. So that was our mission, that nobody would ever have to go through what we witnessed, and also what Zahra's body took on, because as much as the doctors were trying to be sweet to us and say, she's not in any pain, I know she was in pain. There is no way she couldn't have been in pain. And it just shouldn't be in this day and age. Newborn screening is a birthright in every country in the world. Why can't it be in Pakistan? And why didn't my daughter have that opportunity? And if it had been common, or at least future parents know about it, we would have researched that and we would have done it ourselves anyway. But even the doctor in Dubai didn't even ask me. Whether he just took it for granted that she had one, I don't know. But it shouldn't be like that for babies and parents.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also wanted to touch on the fact that, Danielle, you were a TEDx speaker, and as incredible as that is, of course, was it tough to go out there and talk about something so personal, on such a huge platform for the whole world basically to see?
It was really tough, but it was also a dream come true. I mean, you start an NGO and you get asked to go on TEDx. I mean, I was like, wow, this is just amazing. But it was a lot of pressure. If you watch the talk, I think what the whole theme was, what if?
Yes, I did. And I know you got emotional talking about it, of course. I mean, anyone would.
Absolutely. And then my daughter speaking at the end of the recording, and she really summed it up for me. And she was able to say, this is what happened, Mummy. You had a baby, she died, and now you have a charity. And it was as simple as that. And I just thought, this is not my story to share. This is Zahra's story. This is about this angel coming to our life, and we need to help all those other people. So I was extremely nervous. I mean, I would shout at Akbar quite a lot. I practiced. I would mess up. I would drink a glass of wine and say, okay, I'll do it again. And it was incredibly nerve-wracking, but it was something I did because it was meant to be. And I did it for her. But yeah, I did get emotional, but I was very proud of myself for doing it. And
absolutely. You should be.
No, it was quite nerve-wracking. But it was a great opportunity, and just to be on that platform to share her story was an incredible honor.
Of course, and it's so important, to start that conversation. I mean, I personally never heard, that children or babies, sorry, needed to get this test done when they were born, and that this is the what could happen if they don't. I mean, so you've already done a huge part in educating so many people, and that alone is a huge mark to leave, as a legacy.
I think what's incredible is even when our friends have a baby here in Dubai, and they always send me a picture of when their child's having the newborn screening test, and it makes me feel so proud that it's resonated with them. And as long as we, if anything else, we just get the word out of the importance of screening your child, and that this test can test up to 40 different diseases, which these are tests that they're not visible. They play a part later in life, or within a few months of the child's life, or most babies actually, and especially in Pakistan, they die within their first week because they're so sick. Nobody ever knows. So just getting the words out and bringing.
And I think it's also from a practical point of view, the more we've obviously gotten deeper into this, and we realized the long-term benefits of newborn screening, and especially why it's adopted universally in the rest of the world, is that what it also does is it reduces the burden on the healthcare system going forward, because if the less sick babies you have, then obviously, there's less pressure on the healthcare system, and obviously mortality of babies and infant deaths is something that we don't want as a society. So I think that those are some of the greater social issues that we're also starting to confront as we grow the ZB Foundation in Pakistan. And I think these are some of the discussions and almost like arguments we're starting to have with people in decision-making places, where we say, like, this is not just something trivial, this has long-term impact on a country, on a society as a whole, in terms of how we move forward. So it's become a much bigger mission for us, not just purely from the perspective of, yes, we have to test babies, but that it benefits the country, the healthcare system, and obviously reduces, like Pakistan has one of the highest infant mortality rates in the world. And if it wants to improve as a country in terms of the UN charter that is signed, where most countries have to reach a certain threshold in terms of how they're improving as a society, then newborn screening takes on even greater relevance. And so that's some of the areas that we're also starting to focus on in Pakistan.
Yeah, I mean, it's all excellent, and again, I salute you guys for all the work that you're doing. But I do gotta ask, obviously you must have faced some challenges during the initial stages of setting up the ZB Foundation. What were a few that you could name?
I think the biggest one was once we'd been given this machine from Perk and Elmer that were based in Finland, they'd agreed to send us the machine, and unfortunately the Pakistani government wanted to charge us an import duty on the machine. Now, if I took a $500,000 machine, obviously the duty on that was too much. So we were trying to fight to say, look, we've been given it, we're trying to save lives, we need the machine.
You're doing what they're meant to be doing, but they're still trying to get their cut.
If you were doing it, we wouldn't be doing it. But anyway, they would not remove the charge at all. And my father-in-law, who is our chairman, every single day he went, it's a testament of his personality. He's incredible, and he would go every single day to the office. He would sit there, he would be patient, he would ask them kindly to remove the duty, and he did it for a whole year. And after 1 year did they actually honor it, and we never actually had to pay any duty for the machine.
Wow. Amazing.
Which again, another beautiful thing. Sitting in Dubai, I would shout at him and say, just pay it, there's babies dying, let's just find the money, let's just do it. But actually it was the real foundations and the principle of our charity that this is a birthright. We shouldn't have to fight to make this happen. We say our charity is born on the wings of an angel, which it is. So the fact that they actually honored this was incredible. We ended up finding one of the top pediatricians in the country who came onto our board, who's our chief advisor, who's works day to day with our team. We found a great location and everything fell into place, but it does have its challenges. And, you know, it's...
I think one of the other challenges that I briefly mentioned before is when we initially started and we were taken aback was obviously the awareness and the education, especially when it came to doctors and nurses. So that was an initial challenge, and it still is a challenge where, you know, we actually go to, now we have over 40, memorandum of understanding agreements in place with hospitals and clinics where, you know, we say we facilitate their newborn screening, but it's taken a while, and the discussions are still going on with a lot of doctors in terms of, look, you need to, you know, like I said, there are 4 million babies being born every year. So you can imagine that there's still a lot of babies that are falling through the net. And that comes down to the doctors, and that comes down to the nurses, and that comes down to the infrastructure. So I think the ongoing challenge is this education, this awareness, where we have to keep telling people we have to test as many babies as possible. So that's an ongoing challenge.
Yeah. And I'm sure that you guys, if anyone is able to find a solution to this challenge, it's going to be the both of you. You know that many of our listeners will want to know more about donating to the ZB Foundation. So for those who are interested in supporting the cause, what can they do and where can they do it?
So we are actually audited by, who's our auditing company?
Ernst & Young.
Ernst & Young. So all our documents we're very transparent. Everything is on the website. It has all our bank details on the website, so people can donate get our details from the site, or they can contact us, drop us an email. But every time somebody donates, we are obviously transparent. The information is there, and we'll give a full receipt for the donation. I think for us, it's definitely, we try to get as many donations as we can, but we never really ask for funds because it's very hard, because our product isn't tangible. People don't always understand. They don't always understand that, well, how's this money going to help? But the money we receive really operates the laboratory. It spends on our team educating doctors. We've actually opened up little units, little offshoots in the hospitals, so that once a baby is born, we take the blood samples straight away from the hospital and straight to our laboratory to get the quicker turnaround as well. So it is, even though it's not tangible, it's very much needed. And as we've said before, this is just the opportunity that a child needs to start a healthy life.
And for those who are interested, your website is www.thezbfoundation.com. So anyone who wants to check it out can head over there and donate directly on the website. And, I think it's impossible to not talk about COVID-19 and the impact that it has had. Did it cause any difficulties for your foundation? If so, what were they?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this year has been a challenge in so many ways. And I think from our perspective, when it came specifically for the charity, what ended up happening, and especially in Pakistan, was that all the attention diverted towards obviously containing COVID or being prepared for COVID. So the doctors got distracted, governments got distracted. So all the conversations we were having with government authorities got put to the side because everyone's focus was on COVID. So the challenge has been obviously getting the story back up, keeping the story in the limelight, or keeping the issue at heart with everyone. But then at the same time, we've obviously had struggled with the fundraising aspect of it as well, because people's priorities changed, people's perspectives changed. People were looking at different things from different perspectives. So overall, it's obviously been a challenge like anything else. But the amazing thing about obviously our charity, and I actually say this to Dani and my father and some of my colleagues when they get a bit nervous or they get stressed out, I always say, don't worry, this is, when there's something deeper at work, it kind of works itself out. And you would be surprised at how many times over the last 7 years where we literally felt like, okay, what are we going to do next? And then something happens the next day or the next week where then we just keep moving. And I think this year it's kind of been the same, where at certain points we were really, thinking, okay, how are we going to move forward? How are we going to do this? But eventually we found a solution. We found funding, or people came in, or some amazing people stepped up, or some things happened, and we're still functioning, we're still growing, we're back online. We had to in the middle of, obviously, when the lockdown happened and stuff, everything had to slow down a bit, but then we ramped up, and now we're back to basically full operations. As I mentioned, we just recently crossed 30,000 babies. So the challenges are there, but we've overcome a lot of them, and for us the bigger vision still remains, and we just keep moving forward.
I mean, that's all we can do, right? We have to keep pushing, and you guys can never lose hope, because what you're doing is so important, and it has, like you said, a much deeper meaning. Again, I applaud you for everything that you do. I'm speechless just talking about this. It's very hard actually to bring the TEDx talk. Dani, when you got emotional, I felt it as well. I'm not a mother yet, but I hope to be someday, and I can never imagine the pain that you both have gone through, and I am very sorry for your loss. But I do want to ask, what advice would you be able to give other parents who might have dealt with a similar situation with child loss?
I think it's talking about it. I remember when Zahra, Akbar and I, we've always been very communicative, but when she first passed away, we actually started to drift apart for a few days, because he was dealing with it in his way. I was coping with her loss in another way, and our parents were both staying with us, and they said, you two have to stay connected, you have to stay strong, you have to keep talking about it, because this can tear a family apart. And people would ask us to go see a counsellor, and I refused to go see a counsellor. And I remember somebody insisted that I go and see them, and they couldn't answer any of my questions, because when you lose a child, you just want to know why. Why did it happen? Why was this? And I feel like...
But I think through the communication, when we committed to talking to each other, and we, literally reopened the lines of communication, as they say. But from those discussions and from those communications, then that's where the perspective came from, and that's where then we started to jointly ask the question, okay, why us? Why now? Why here? Why Zahra? And when we discussed those questions, then we talked to each other, then the answer started to come from us. You didn't need anyone else to tell you, what the answers were or what the reasons were, and from that's where everything started again. And I think in our case, we were also very fortunate, and we're very grateful that literally the way we tell it, the story is quite incredible. The 1 month from the day that Zahra passed away, we got another call, because obviously by this time a lot of people had known about our story and stuff. So we got another call from Pakistan about another baby girl that had been abandoned. And so literally a month to the day Zahra passed away, we had another baby called, who obviously is our eldest child now, called Amara. And
I think, just going back with what Akbar said in your question, is it's a lot of people, when they lose a child, they don't, go and try for another child or have the opportunity for another child. And people would say to me, when we got Amara, how did you cope? You've just lost your other daughter. And by no way was she there to be a sellotape on another Zahra. She came to heal my heart, because one minute I've just buried my baby, and now I'm holding a month later my new child. But and I tell this to Amara all the time, she saved my life. Having another child to love and give my attention to and talk to her about Zahra really was therapeutic and saved me. And many books that I've read and programs I've watched, and people that have lost a baby, they said they would never have another one. And I disagree. I think you need to get back out there and try and get another baby, because it's the only thing that will ever heal your heart. Otherwise, you will permanently have a hole in your heart where you've missed that child. And even though we had Amara, the love for Zahra never ever went away. It was just that I had another child to love as well. And that would be, from a mother's point of view, the advice that I would give: go out there and try and have another child, because it's unbelievably healing.
Incredible. And as you mentioned your daughter Amara, I know you also have 2 more kids. And with so many young kids, you know, you guys are looking like you're having a great time all the time, and you also manage to both be working and running a foundation and traveling and raising your kids. So what's your secret? How do you do all of this?
I really don't think there's any secret. I think it's like any family, really. But I do think a very important point is, which again is, we may sound like we really like believe in, you know, angels and universe and all these things, because it's been our lifesaver. It's helped us, you know, process what's happened in our life. But so we got Zahra. She passed away a month to the day she passed away. We got Amara. 3 months later, I got pregnant with twins. And
Wow.
I had
Incredible.
4 children. So when you have something like that happen to you, 1 year in February 2012, I'm burying my first child. Then the next month, I have a new child, and then the exact date the same year, the following year, we give birth to our twins. And I think that makes you appreciate life and appreciate everything that you have.
And you don't take anything for granted.
Yeah. So
you live with a constant state of gratitude, and to make the most of your every single moment. And I think even subconsciously now, that's the way we live it, you know. And I think that then, and if you're, as parents, if you can reflect that, then I think that starts to, you know, seep through to your kids. So then the kids pick up on it, and then the kids live with that, you know, that level of gratitude and that level of openness. And I think that combines to give us that that outlook on life.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, the last very important question that I need to ask is, what does the future look like for the Naqvi family? Any big plans for 2021?
Oh, that's, I mean, we're gonna continue living the life that we live, which is full on, as you can imagine, with 3 kids. I think 2021 is going to be a very interesting year for us, because from my perspective, I feel like that's the year where everything that I'm trying to do on a professional level is going to take off. So it's going to be super busy on the professional side. But even from Dani's perspective, I think travel is going to become very interesting going forward. So everything that Dani's going to do for her business is going to be super interesting for 2021. I mean, our plan is to travel much more in 2021. So I hope all these.
I think that's everyone's plan, to be honest with you, Akbar. I think after this year, everyone just wants to get out there as soon as they can.
I'm really looking forward to taking all the vaccines.
Now we have actually come to the segment of our show where I will ask you guys a couple of rapid fire questions. Very easy stuff, so don't stress. Think of it as a game show. So first thing that pops into your mind, just go ahead and say it. Are you guys ready?
I love these games.
I'm glad. Okay, so one thing that is on your bucket list.
Well, I have a few ultra races that I want to compete in next year. So there's one that I'm doing in France in August, so I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, okay. And Dani?
Bora Bora. Anything to do with travel, but I'm dying to go. 4 Seasons Bora Bora, that's my bucket list.
And I'm sure you're going to be there very soon. Actually, my next question was going to be what your favorite holiday destination has been so far.
So we are lovers of Maldives. My kids love it, but we actually, as a family, and I would recommend it to every family in the world to do, is safari. Wherever you can get to do a real safari, go out and do it, because and when your children at the right age, and I can help with that, it's the most amazing for your kids to experience nature and to experience animals in the wild. And it's an incredible holiday, and our kids have loved that as well.
And what's a song that never gets old for you guys?
Oh, that's
Zahra song, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's an easy one for us. So in a way, Diamonds, Rihanna, that's
right.
Essentially, yeah, so we love that song.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys for playing along. And now before we wrap up, we would finally like to do our green pill moment. So Akbar, could you please share an inspiring or life-changing experience that you've gone through, which was your green pill moment?
Sure. So very recently, just to give you a brief history, for the last 2 years, I've gotten into ultra marathons, so running long distances over in super exotic places. And one of the reasons obviously why I do it is because I love running and I love the challenge of going on these deep adventures. But what's happened with it is I've started to associate it with obviously the ZB Foundation, and it's become an avenue for us to raise awareness of newborn screening and the ZB Foundation. So when I run and I go on these really long distances and I go to all these different places, I run in the name of the charity, and like I say, I run on the wings of an angel. So just recently in Dubai, I completed a challenge where I ran 200 kilometers in the Dubai desert on August. Yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah, end of August.
In 48 hours, in less than 48
in 42 hours.
How hot was it? August is like the worst.
Yeah, it was like 50 degrees.
Oh no.
Yeah, so that was quite a challenge, but I came out of it, as I said to you before. I learned a lot about myself, and through that, not only did I learn a lot about myself, but we got a lot of positivity, positive vibes, positive energy, positive generation of news for the ZB Foundation as well. So it solidified this little adventure of mine that I'm doing, and hopefully I'm going to do more of them coming in the next couple of years.
Wonderful. How exciting. And Dani, what green pill advice would you give to your younger self?
You see, I really struggled with this actually, because I'm not really sure, because I think it would maybe to do on a financial level. I think it would be invest your money wisely.
That's a really good one.
Times like this, because I suppose if I'd have had more, investments or put money away, that, times that have been difficult now during COVID, I would have, had a little bit more room to play with financially. So I would most probably say always keep a little piggy bank, but obviously bigger than when you're kids, not just a couple of dirhams, but put money away and really do invest it wisely.
Absolutely. It's great advice. Well, thank you guys both for, sharing your very personal and touching story with me and my listeners today. Sure that the audience is going to enjoy this conversation as much as I did.
And thank you so much. Thank you for inviting us on it. It was an absolute pleasure, and thank you for, having us on the show.
Yeah, we obviously love having these conversations, because it goes to the heart of who we are as a family, as a couple, as people. And obviously the ZB Foundation is something very dear to our hearts. So we love having these conversations. So thank you for having us on.
Well, thank you guys for joining me. I wish your family and the ZB Foundation all the very best.
And you too. All the very best to you. And thank you again.
Take care.
If you enjoy our conversations, please like and subscribe. See you next Wednesday.